What is going on, everyone? You are tuned into the Invest in Hockey podcast. Today is November 6th, 2024. We are on and in the eve of the Toronto Sports Card Expo, which we'll get into later in the pod. It's been accompanying most of myself and Eric's time. But my name's Anthony Santini. As you know, I'm joined here with Eric Wilson. And I don't even need to ask you what's going on because we already know we're getting ready for the Expo. And I already know you watched a bunch of hockey last night. So what else are you getting up to?
So much hockey, so much sports, so much cards. That's what I'm getting up to. But this is a perfect lead off before the expo, as a lot of our viewers will probably be familiar with sports cards, whether that's a few hockey cards that they collected growing up or whatever it is. But you were right. I watched a lot of hockey yesterday. I know you had so many things to say on our call this morning, but I wanted to leave some of it till the pod today. I'll start off by saying the Bruins lost 4-zip, and it kind of ruined my night, but it was a tough game. It was a tough game of hockey. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't pretty, but it just shows when you convert on your opportunities, you're gonna win the game, and that's what hurt the Bruins was just not converting, especially when it came to David Pastrnak. So yeah, how you been?
I mean, I think too, watching that game last night, the Leafs definitely missed Auston Matthews at first, is what I thought was going to be the reason as to why they would lose to the Bruins. Because it always feels like when they go against the big bad Bruins, they just kind of crumble, even at home, on the road, anytime. But yesterday they looked really, really good, even without Auston Matthews. I believe three power play goals and an empty netter to seal the deal against the Bruins last night. The Leafs look absolutely amazing. They look like they didn't miss Matthews at all. He is playing on Friday, I believe, against Washington, or he will be in question to play. Sorry.
Yes,
So
yeah.
he is day to day. I saw that was moved just this morning. But the topic that we really wanted to start off with was the injury bug that's kind of going on with some of the major superstars in the NHL right now. And the likes of Connor McDavid, as we mentioned, also Auston Matthews, and possibly the Norris Trophy frontrunner Cale Makar as of right now, who we want to get into. But we're going to discuss some of how this impacts the league itself and even fantasy leagues as well, because NHL fantasy is at the front and center of what feels like my priority of fantasy sports right now, because I have no shame to say that I'm last place in most of my fantasy football leagues. I just took a drastic turn from being really good last year. So first off, I do have Auston Matthews. I know you have Connor McDavid in another league, but how does that kind of gauge how you feel about the remainder of the season for Connor McDavid for fantasy and for the NHL? Because he's up for a lot of awards usually when he's on the ice for 82 games. And if he can't play 82 games, that could be put into question. So how do you feel right now as a Connor McDavid owner and also a viewer as he battles this injury?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the best question to say is as an owner, it's you got to be feeling excited for call it December, January time when McDavid should be at his best. But even if McDavid returns in the next like week or so, I don't think he's going to be at that peak performance just because Edmonton's been struggling as well and they never really were clicking to begin with. So I thought it was a great buy low opportunity. I made a few trades for McDavid in 1 to 2 leagues. Obviously, I'm a McDavid owner, but I also am a Matthews owner, and I'm also a Makar owner in some leagues. So it feels like it's a bug that, like you said, it stings you, and it's like all you can really do is stash these guys on the IR plus slash IR and hope for the best. But I don't know. We really got to talk about Makar and McKinnon because no matter how much we talk about them, they're impressive. There's no doubt about it, and like we both actually had Cale Makar on our Norris Trophy um, kind of prediction there, and it's just no doubt in my mind that he's going to win the Norris if he is healthy-ish, even if he's a bit day to day and misses a game or two, right?
Oh, for sure. I think he's an absolute lock to win the Norris. I don't see anyone contesting that right now. Quinn Hughes off to a little bit of a slow start. Vancouver hasn't been as hot as they once were 365 days ago, and the likes of his play hasn't really reflected anything of a Norris Trophy winner. So I don't think Quinn Hughes is going to be in contention to win that. Roman Yossi, obviously we talked about it all offseason, and you were all over his under goals, under 19 or 21 and a half, which sounds ridiculous considering he hasn't even found the back of the net, I don't believe, once as of yet so far through 13, 14 games. So very
Yeah.
tough for the defensemen to really make a push at Cale Makar for what's been the start of one of his best seasons. I mean, maybe Jake Sanderson really started off hot, was really great for on the power play for the Ottawa Senators, but it is very clear that Cale Makar will win this Norris. It's November 6th. He's going to win it unless, injury barring. Hopefully not. We're cheering for him, but I do think that the combo of having McKinnon and Makar in a fantasy league is just so valuable. We know one of our buddies has the McKinnon, Makar, and Rantanen stack, which is just so unreal. Like, it's not even fair at all. And we talked about it that McKinnon might be more valuable in most fantasy leagues than Connor McDavid, especially if you are in a category league, a points league, whatever it is. It almost sounds like that McDavid was the incorrect pick, taking him first overall. Kind of reminds me of the Christian McCaffrey incident that I'm sure so many people got hit with just this start of fantasy football season. Because even though you're picking the best player, they still get injured. Things happen, and maybe you should have picked CeeDee Lamb. Maybe you should have picked Tyreek Hill. I mean, even though he's had a tough start to the season too. But
Yeah.
looking at the NHL, I mean, maybe you should have picked McKinnon. Maybe you should have picked Makar. There's a lot of other options that are really outperforming what McDavid even started with when he was healthy. So as of right now, Makar and McKinnon is the one of the best stacks in NHL fantasy history, I think, and even just on the ice in general. It's
Yeah.
what's keeping this Avalanche team afloat.
Yeah, afloat and like man, the wins keep coming again. They it doesn't have to be pretty for even in net there. You can just have a solid goalie in net like a Noonan who stands his ground, can let in a few goals, and you still can trust McKinnon to put up five apples. And Makar to just pop into second in the scoring race, which is ridiculous. It's astonishing, and I want to bring up the non-fantasy side of things. Before fantasy hockey probably even existed, we had the greatest forward defenseman duo in Paul Coffey and Wayne Gretzky lead the way. And while we probably can't compare anyone to those two at the moment, I want to ask you about Steve Yzerman and Nicholas Lindstrom, and if you see comparables in those two compared to Makar and McKinnon.
I mean, personally, through fantasy, it's tough to really say because obviously fantasy wasn't really around. But when you talk about the impact on a game, especially for a team just being so dominant based on what a forward and a defenseman can provide for you, it's almost like you can put them on that level. Obviously, I didn't really have the opportunity to watch Lidstrom or Steve Yzerman in person when I was younger, or even too much when I was growing up. But just watching some of the highlights, hearing what everyone has to say about the history and what they brought to the game, it's very comparable, to answer your
Yeah.
question, to McKinnon and Makar, because when you talk about a forward defenseman duo that could just go out there, win a hockey game by just being on the ice and dominating a power play, you really can't let any of these players break out. And I watched yesterday, there was one play where McKinnon got the puck. I believe it was a pass in the neutral zone where he got it around the red line and just busted right to the net. None of the defensemen had anything to say about it. I believe he flew by Brandon Montour, and there was a great save that luckily stopped it. But it's just so incredible watching McKinnon, his foot speed, his stick speed, and the way that he can move so quick without even
Yeah.
thinking about it. So it is Connor McDavid-esque and even better in a sense.
Yeah, and honestly, again, we'll keep kind of going back to the fantasy point, but when I think of our league, we're in a bit of a banger league with hits and blocks. I think that Nick Lindstrom was up there in those as well, just because he was such a big guy. He definitely was up there in the hit category. I think that would have increased his value as a defenseman, even if he wasn't close to like a Makar on a point level sort of thing. But it's just so interesting thinking if we were to play fantasy hockey 10 years ago, like there's no Cale Makar. We almost missed that little era in the 2010s of a Makar type defenseman. Outside of a few years of Erik Karlsson, is that fair to say?
I'd say so.
Yeah. So again, a few years of Erik Karlsson, but we're experiencing greatness, and I think we need to appreciate that. That first pick is up for grabs, and the second pick is up for grabs in fantasy hockey, and you really can't go wrong with who you take at this point. I'm going to be interested to see where McDavid finishes in the rankings, but I'm hoping that if he does return, he'll still be a top 12 player, and that way you can say he was a first round pick still, right?
Oh, for sure.
And I think that will lead us into our next talk of some of last night's talk. Did you watch any of the games outside of the Colorado and the Leafs game as well?
So I mainly watched the Colorado Leafs game. I actually ended up watching a little bit of Philly, Carolina, and I saw that one of the dustiest goals that I've ever seen in my life. Morgan Frost just scored a terrible goal. He pretty much had like a wide open backdoor chance. Went to go shoot it, fluffed on it, hit like his ankle, his shin type of area.
Yeah.
That puck went in, and he even went to go get like a second chance on it. It was one of the dustiest goals that I've ever seen. But obviously, they don't say what's the saying? They don't say how, or what
Yeah,
is
no
it?
pictures on the score sheet, right? They don't ask.
Yeah, exactly. All types of saying to see exactly how a player performs. But obviously, Morgan Frost has been having a great year. That was a game that I took a liking to, a high scoring game. And obviously, even Bobby Brink looked pretty good, a guy that we
Oh
talked
yeah.
about. He ended up blocking a pretty big shot last night, and he's playing, I believe, on that first line now. So a lot of
Ooh,
opportunity for um, Philadelphia
yeah.
Flyers prospects.
Who won that game, by the way?
I believe it was Philly, 5-4. I
That'd be
believe.
a pretty big win for them. I know we're gonna get into some Carolina talk later, but I did want to. I was curious because I didn't get a chance to catch that game at
Oh,
all.
6-4 Carolina. 6-4.
Oh yeah, hey, that's not bad. I personally had a pretty big buzz in the fantasy world last night with my especially my ESPN leagues. A lot of my depth guys really contributed. I had McTavish had a point. A lot of the other young guys too, and even in like the San Jose game, Alex Wenberg with the OT winner against his former team Columbus. Like, what
Yeah.
better feeling in hockey than to score an OT winner against your former team, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So a lot of great things there. We haven't really talked any negativity, but unfortunately, Dylan Holloway had a scare and a scary injury that hopefully isn't too bad. Did you get a chance at that?
Yeah, I saw that too. It was a confusing injury too because right off the hop he blocks a shot, so he goes down, winces just a little bit, but then actually continues his shift. So for me, I was a little bit confused. And he had a pretty good shift right after too, with a really good chance. So hoping
Yeah.
all the best for him. But it does sound like he is okay. That's what I was reading last night. But hopefully we could get some more news and everything works out.
Yeah, that he has been a big piece of that Blues team along with Philip Broberg, and Broberg seems to be injured now too. So I'm a little skeptical of touching the Blues when it comes to fantasy hockey, betting anything like that. So I'm kind of staying away from them. But they beat the Lightning, so I was a little shocked about that upset. One
Yeah.
more team I am all over is the Pittsburgh Penguins. They lost in overtime last night to the Isles, which is disappointing. But like people forget how good Malkin is, and he's just every night he shows up, and he's so hard to play against, right?
Yeah, even like fantasy wise too, he's been so much better because last year I had him, I traded for him, and he wasn't really that good, especially when we talk about for category leagues as well. You want to be able to have a player that covers all the categories. And for Malkin, Crosby, Letang, the way these
Yeah,
players have aged is just so amazing. It's like fine wine, like when we talk about LeBron too, with that saying. Crosby the other night had 2 goals, I believe, against
yeah,
Montreal last Saturday. And they're really truly the heart of this Pittsburgh Penguin team, and it's been that way for 15 plus years. So
yeah. And actually, he's approaching a milestone too, Crosby. I think he got to like something 98 goals. Like I don't know what hundredth it was, but I think he's 2 goals from a big milestone there. So it seems like he's reaching milestones every single day almost. And we also know that his value is pretty crazy in leagues with faceoffs. So again, another league we're in together, but he's not slowing down. Raquel looks very good out there. Definitely a bounce back year for him. And then, I mean, Letang and Carlson are kind of just Letang and Carlson. It's almost like they're both like 1.5 defensemen. They're not number ones and they're not number twos, right? So,
yeah.
but again, that's just a team I feel like we don't mention enough. And kind of leads us into the Hurricanes because I want to talk about Martin Necas, who like doesn't get talked about at all. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, very underrated player that I think, was supposed to leave the Hurricanes last year. They end up settling their holdout slash dispute that they had going on near the end of the season. He resigns, and obviously, when you strap him with some players like Sebastian Aho, Svechnikov, there's a lot of talent, a lot of scoring to be had. But there, I believe, would be an undervalued when it comes to hockey cards, which we'll get into, but an undervalued sense for him in that market and also in the fantasy market as well too. You don't see a lot of people attacking Martin Necas or targeting him when it comes to trying to get them on their team. So for me personally, if I were to acquire or get or pick up Martin Necas or draft him next year, I think you got to look at that and say it's a really, really good pickup.
Yeah. Honestly, it's not only a good pickup, but like it's the dual eligibility thing, which any fan who's watching will give a brief overview. But if a player is dual eligible, it means they have more than just one position on their player profile. So great example is Martin Necas with center right wing. Um, I'm sure there's a lot of wingers on your team who are left wing, right wing as well, right, Sans? So
Yeah.
one guy I added who I think you like this pickup, but Quinton Byfield. He scored a goal and had an assist last night, which was huge.
Oh,
But
really? I didn't know that.
he's not dual eligible, but help me here.
He has
Try
three
eligible.
center,
Yeah.
center, left wing, right wing.
Yeah, so again, the added value is crazy because a guy like Byfield would not be valuable in a 1 year league, let alone a keeper league, if he just was getting a few face-off wins and not producing. But he's doing good things for the Kings, who upset the Wild 5-1. So another game where I was a little disappointed because I've got Gus Bus in that, but I was still pretty happy to see the Kings get a win there because they're actually first in the Pacific now, which I'm sure that shocks you as well.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And I think that's going to lead me into something we've never done before. I'm going to look at RotoWire. I'm sure you've heard of RotoWire. They do fantasy hockey and things, but they have a list of top 100 trending players in the NHL. Um, I don't know if there's anyone you can predict on this list, but when it comes to skaters, um, you'll be able to predict the guy. Maybe name a guy, and I'll let you know where he is on this list.
So is it just 100 from like last night, the last week? Like, how does it work?
It's based on their last 5 games, and it's kind of point related. So they got to be producing,
Point
but
related? Oh,
yeah, I
maybe someone like Stefan Nosen. Are they top 15?
think he is here. Yeah, let's
Is he?
see here. All a good luck for him. I'm seeing a lot of names. Connor McMichael's one who we talk about a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Um, I think that Steven Nesson's there somewhere. I had him rostered for a bit, but it
Yeah.
was a little unfortunate because the Devils. I mean, he's PP1, which adds some value, but he's on that borderline of droppable and rosterable, right? I
Yeah, maybe even like a player like Anton Lundell. Is he part of the list there?
think he is. Yeah, let's see. I'll have to look for Lindell here. I don't know if Lindell's been red hot, has he? Do you know if he's rostered at all?
Yeah, he's been good, man. Really good. Really good.
See, another guy that's a bit of a sleeper and um, definitely was an investment after the playoffs last year because he's kind of been a lot more steady, even if he's playing with like second line guys in Florida, like a Sam Bennett kind of guy. But I don't see Lindell on this list. I don't see Nesson, but I think that this must be just the last 5, I guess, and maybe not the last 10, you know.
Yeah.
But I will mention the top 5 for you, and you can um share your thoughts. At 5, we have Willie Nylander with
Okay.
8 points in his last 5. We have Alex Ovechkin at number 4, absolute
Okay.
stud in fantasy hockey. Um, and he's also got 17 shots. And then we have Reinhardt at number 3, a guy that I know you love as well, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then we got Natchez at 2 with 12 points, and McKinnon at number 1 with 12 points in their last 5. So
Unreal.
again, white
Unreal.
white hot guys, and it's just so good to see the call it diverse selection there with Natchez being in the top 5 is pretty incredible, right?
Yep. Oh, for sure.
So I think that's pretty crazy. I'll let you get into the Young Gun edition where you mentioned Natchez. I don't know if you had a chance to see what his Young Guns rookie card is going for.
No, I haven't seen.
So last few sales on his Young Gun have been about $25 Canadian.
Okay.
Um, anyone who knows graded cards, he has a PSA 10 that's around 150 right now, which is pretty high. But um, this card was worth with next to nothing a few weeks ago, I would say. I don't know if you agree, Sans.
Yeah, I mean, a player that wasn't really valued too much, like we said, pretty underrated. You could, I believe, probably get him late in the draft or maybe even on the waiver wire if you really had a short league. But for this value, I'd say that it's about fair for how good of a goal scorer he is. But there's many other players that I would rather have pick up instead of Natchez for that price. I mean, a lot of other players. This is a fair value, I'd say, for him. Around $25 is pretty fair. So I know you're going to talk about the expo right next, but if you are coming to the expo and you are listening, you have been to the expo before, keep an eye out for Martin Natchez.
Yeah, just in terms of guys you actually want to invest in if you think they're gonna, maintain that potential, or someone who hasn't hit it yet. There's been a lot of slow starts. I think Zach Hyman's still on that slow start. I think Joseph Wall, someone who is very low in value right now. A lot of people turning their back on him. Kind of typical for Leafs fans. I wouldn't doubt that, but there's a lot of guys in mind. There's a lot of guys popping off. Matt Duchene's playing really well for the Stars. Again, lots of veterans, but also lots of young guys. And then opportunity. We have Valerie Nishushkin coming back very soon. Is he someone you'd pick up in fantasy?
If it is available, I would 100% pick him up. I think he's going to complement that power play very well. In about every league that he is available or is in, or sorry, that I am in, he is not available because I've tried to acquire him. So it feels like, I don't know what it is, but I was so ready for the draft that when it came down to that first week, week and a half, I wasn't really looking on the waiver too much. I don't know what it was. I think I have a strategy next year that I'm not telling anyone, but I do have a strategy for the draft because you want to be able to pick up players that first week. There's so many players available that turn up so fast, end up on that first line. We look at like Granlund, Lundell, like so many good names. Even like a player like Natchez, if you could target them when they get a quick start. So I particularly don't have them in any leagues. I believe maybe in fan tracks I do have them, or I was thinking about dropping them. I got to check. But if you
Yeah.
can get Valerie Nichushkin, I 100% would.
Yeah, that's a fair take. Now, maybe you have a strategy. Maybe you don't want to share it. I get
Nope.
it, but at the end of the day, if you draft well enough, you're not going to have any droppable players at the start of the season. So I'm very curious to hear that strat, or even just to see the strat. I know you won't share it, but that is the truth, right? If you draft perfectly, unless you make trades, maybe like a 2-for-1 trade before the season, maybe you're leading into that. But
Yeah.
if you drafted a guy like Brant Clark, Matvey Michkov, and Justus Sanunin, those guys should never have been dropped. So you almost wouldn't have been able to pick up a guy like Val Nichushkin. Forgetting that whole IR thing because that's a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I mean, for sure. I think there is a lot of opportunity next year, and we'll get into that with the fantasy draft. As of right now, it's 2 weeks into the season, but we are actually headed to the Toronto Sports Card Expo today to set up a little bit of information for listeners that are in the Toronto, Mississauga, Etobicoke, Oakville area. So it is at the International Center in Mississauga, just down Airport Road. It runs all the way from Thursday until Sunday at 5 p.m. We are set up at booth 5606 under Sports Cards GTA. So if you download the app, you will be able to search up Sports Cards GTA, find our booth, come walk over, come say what's up, come say you're a listener, and we will, talk some hockey too. If you're not looking to buy cards, if you're just looking to walk around and take a look at cards, we're more than happy to talk sports, talk anything, whatever it might be. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a big, big weekend. A lot of prep left to do for the rest of the day. I know we got 2, 3 more hours before we head out the door, so maybe get a nap in before.
Oh, it's a possibility, that's for sure. I wasn't thinking that, but now that you threw it out there, possibly. I'll add a few points onto your stance. Definitely, you don't have to be a collector. You can just be a sports fan. Anyone who is, whether you've watched sports before or not, we're mainly gonna have hockey set up, but we're also gonna have football, basketball, some baseball, sports memorabilia. We both have some nice jerseys, some frames we're gonna have there. And yeah, come chat with us about anything. We have lots of hockey to chat, lots of debates. So maybe you disagree from something we said about this pod, maybe the McKinnon McDavid debate, something like that. Come chat. I'll throw this out there, Sans, because you haven't heard this yet, but I do have a box of Young Guns rookie cards that I'll be giving away to everyone who subscribes to our YouTube channel.
Whoa.
So
Okay.
anyone who comes to our table and scans our QR code will have the chance to get a free Young Guns rookie card. All you gotta do is scan
Oh.
the QR code, and I'll be giving out those packs of one Young Gun per person. So I think it's a good, pretty promo there, you know?
Hey, does it count for me though? Can I scan and subscribe and get a free one?
I think you could. Yeah, I don't know if you're subbed on your personal account there.
Hey, I like that.
Yeah.
All right, all right.
But hopefully that's a nice way to wrap things up. And glad we could get a nice pot in for November. But a lot of injuries, but lots of good things to look forward to in the NHL as we approach the weekend. So we're
Yeah.
dialed for the expo and appreciate your time, Sense. Thank you guys for
Yeah,
listening.
let's do it, buddy. We got a couple more hours to get ready. I'm gonna do a little bit more prep down here and then just chill out for a little bit because I know it's probably gonna be a little bit moving and setting up. But appreciate everyone for listening. Enjoy hockey this weekend, and make sure to stop by the expo. See you guys next week.